What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Showdown breakdown. Where my turds at? We got the quad GOAT crew in the house to break down a very complicated showdown with the Eagles at the Texans. Let's do this. We are coming off a bunch of big showdown takedowns in week 8, and we keep it going. Last week, what was the big one? 60K winner, first place, big tie. I cannot remember it's so frequent. And by the way, the weeks are just melting together to the point I don't remember what week it is, but we've been crushing these showdowns, and we've got Hunter as the bonus analyst on this one because we needed to dive into numbers. Today we've got a really interesting showdown to break down between the Eagles and the Texans. And the reason it's interesting is because the Eagles are just a massive favorite. And in those scenarios with a great defense, Eagles 14-point favorite, 45-point total game. So in these scenarios where you have a massive favorite, we wanted to take a look at historical production, historical sort of output, fantasy points output, and all of that. And no one loves to dive into the numbers more than Hunter. So he's here with us. Of course, we've got myself, the Geek. We got Bobbywow, aka Bobby Millions, in the house, and DFS Up North, GPP player extraordinaire, jack of all trades. So we are going to break this one down for you guys, and let's get right into it. And before we even get to the matchups, Hunter, I wanted to go over to you, and I'm going to bring up the some of the numbers, but give me a little bit of breakdown. Traditionally, what have you seen in the metrics in games where one team is a 14-point favorite? And we really have to make some tricky decisions here because everybody hates everything to do with the Texans.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that stand out to me in the like historical stuff. One is like just in general, if you look at Philly, I mean, 33% of the time Hurts is the nuts captain. That's like a ridiculous. That's higher than Josh Allen, if that puts it in perspective.
I want to clarify that one too. That is not just from the Eagles team. That means from both teams. When the Eagles are in a showdown, 33% of the time. So 1 out of 3 appearances in a showdown, Hurts is the nuts captain. I like it. Okay.
So, I mean, if you just wanted to take that one statistic and look at what is going to be the ownership on Hurts as in the captain and make your decision based off of that. Like, I mean, right now, I think we're projecting him around 20%. I find that hard to believe. But if that is truly what he's going to be owned, then like it's an EV positive just to play, just to go all in on Hurts in your captain spot. But, you know, because you have a 1 in 3 shot of like that's the nuts captain. Now, if you want to look outside of that, there's some other options. These high scoring matchups traditionally favor the favored running back is like usually the number 1, and then it's followed by the favored quarterback and then WR1. So that's your kind of order of operations when looking at.
You think that happens because you're just loading up from the one team and not really playing much from
the
other?
5-1 stacks for the favorite team in these 14 ones is the highest occurrence of 5-1 of any of the scenarios. So
we gotta pause.
Okay.
Somebody just reminded me of something. Bobbywow.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
You got to take the dust off it.
Wait, Bobby, your hair's pretty long.
So on the Monday showdown breakdown, you almost got me. Bobbywow bet me on a turd hat bet that the People's wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, would outproduce Amari Cooper. I was big on Amari Cooper, who, by the way,
smashed.
He was the nuts captain,
as punishment, Bobbywow is wearing the turd hat. What's up? Hold up.
Thank you for reminding us.
I gotta go up.
Hell no. To the no.
Oh shit. Can't let it go too long or the Bishop's people will
mad.
sanction us for using his
They'll
musical
condemn you.
stylings. But there we go. Turd hat. Sorry, Hunter. I had to.
Hey, no
Rough.
worries.
You look
We
good in that
definitely got
hat,
to take
Bobbywow.
care of the turd hat.
We
Let
are
me tell you
so
something.
back.
Winning millions does not preclude you from wearing a turd hat.
No.
It feels right.
It does
What-
feel right. Isn't it
I
comfortable?
think so. Like, I think we're back to the running back, right? Like, I think in those games, it's like, okay, especially against a team that can't stop the run like Houston. Like, if the Eagles get up and they come out and Miles Sanders scores a touchdown and then maybe scores another one, and now all of a sudden it's 14-0, they just keep pounding the ball because they don't need to throw it. Like, that's a live scenario here.
Yeah, we've already seen that
so
once
live.
this year with the Jacksonville game. So
Yeah,
it's definitely a possibility. You hate playing it because they priced Miles Sanders up so much that he's like in the AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts conversation now. So he should be priced like $2K cheaper than he is based off of the kind of normal production he gets you.
Everybody's priced up on the slate on the Eagles. It's bananas.
anybody
But
that's viable.
I think what you just said is really relevant. You know, there's the scenario where if Eagles defense is really dominating this game, are they going to run Jalen Hurts that much? The Eagles have already been known to shut down the offense a little bit in the second half of games when they're leading big. They could be leading big like after the first quarter in a game like this. And all of a sudden it's just the Miles Sanders show. So,
well, let me give you one stat that's even a higher percentage stat than the Jalen Hurts stat. It's the opposing running back to Houston. Over the last 2.5 years in showdowns, the opposing running back has hit 35% of the time.
oh my gosh.
37% in that.
Remember Derrick Henry last week?
Yeah. I mean, we saw what Derrick Henry did. Now, Miles Sanders is not in the Derrick Henry stratosphere of outcomes, but
I think more funny. I think almost the more comical here is that the only out of 35 games, like wide receiver, a couple games, couple times the QB, probably those crazy Davis Mills games from the end of last season.
Some of that was also Watson when he was actually playing.
Oh, could have even still been Watson, and that's
it was still Watson.
Basically, the Nuts captain is supremely unlikely to come from Houston unless maybe it's some wide receiver that maybe, I guess Cooks would be in the mix, but that would probably require a high scoring overall game with back and forth production in order to get there. So in a competitive game, that might happen. I think here in a non-competitive game, actually can still get there if they're just throwing it at the end of the game and garbage.
The most surprising stat of that was the 3% of the opposing quarterback. I thought was really interesting that Houston has traditionally done really good against limiting the quarterback. And that's probably because they do so poorly limiting the running back and wide receivers.
Or because they're not playing the Eagles or the Bills.
Sure.
Or the kind of teams that produce nuts captains to the QB position.
Yeah, I mean, they play a lot Indianapolis a lot and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's not getting you there. So yeah, I mean, like the Jaguars and the Colts, they're not getting you there. So really interesting notes here. And I want to see kind of how it all flows together when we start to look at lineup construction.
Not very well.
No, it doesn't. Well, you just got to pay up for like defenses and weird things that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah, it's weird
in a scenario like this. So let's take a look at these two teams and see what we could figure out from their general matchups and starting lineups and all of this.
Let me give you one more stat before you get too far into this, so people have it in context. In these high scoring affairs, the favored quarterback and favored WR1 show up in almost 90 to 95% of the flex plays or in the lineup at all. So it's almost 100% that you should have both of those guys in your lineup. I would bring that percentage way up from where you.
So we're talking to put names on the players. We're talking about AJ
Hurts
Brown and
AJ.
Hurts and
Devonta's technically a WR2.
What? And then Sanders too. I mean, is that showing up too? Since we see
not really, no, not. I mean, but it's not looking at these specific teams. It's looking at in general.
Just in general.
Yeah, I mean that RB1 actually hits captain more than it really kind of like is a good flex play.
Yeah.
Why?
makes sense.
So I wonder why that would be. I guess if the RB1 isn't scoring enough to be the captain,
Well, the other
then-
competing with the other guys.
yeah, then he winds up because he's priced up at that peak level. Maybe if he's just not scoring enough, he just doesn't belong in the lineup at all.
Yeah,
of
that's
thing.
kind of what I'm thinking.
I wonder if that is where the math is going with that, but really interesting. Anyway, so again, let's talk about these two teams specifically, and I'll start with the Houston side. It's pretty gross. Mostly it's gross because the Eagles are really good defensively. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you guys something. I love this sheet. As you know, this is the fresh points 4 points against sheet for NFL Week 9, and you can get this.
Number.
What's that?
The running back number for Houston.
Yeah. So Houston, and you want to talk about Miles Sanders. Houston is allowing and of course the Derrick Henry game is affecting this from last week. But
Just
it was
a little
already
bit, though. Like
this,
it was they were the worst.
This is why we
before
loaded
Henry.
up on Henry last week, right? So it's gotten worse. Houston is allowing 10 points above average. That doesn't mean 10 points. That means like if Derrick Henry normally scores 30 in a game, he's putting up 40 against Houston. If Miles Sanders does normally score about 16 fantasy points in a game or 14, and that 14 to 16 will get the average, then this one is going he should be expected to give up an extra 10 points. Listen, this is open to the public, Andy K, but they get a little taste of what you get as a DFS Army subscriber every day in the Showdown breakdown. We're going to do this for every Showdown. Public gets one. Got to be out there. Got to let them know what we do, why we win more often than everybody else, and why they should be signed up at DFS Army as a VIP with promo code Geek, which gets you 10% off. That's really important. And guys, by the way, don't forget to smash the like button if you like this kind of. More important, you know what? Just subscribe to the channel. I don't care if you hit the like button or not. I don't care. Just subscribe to the channel. I'm looking at the sub numbers. A lot of you guys are watching. You're not sub to the channel. That upsets me. Sub to the channel. All right. Where were we? Okay. So Houston, all the running back touches going to Damian Pierce at this point. Really, Rex Burkhead is just a scraps guy. Very, very tough to play running back against the Eagles, though, because they're really good. But I do expect Damian Pierce to get plenty of volume and is of interest in this game for me. Josh, what's the story with the wide receivers for Houston this week?
Yeah, so my boy Nico Collins is out. So he's not going to play. So we're going to look at Brandon Cooks, obviously dealing with an injury himself, but should be good to go here. And then you get some interesting cats here. We get Chris Moore. We get Philip Dorsett. We got Tyron Johnson getting a couple of snaps in there. Anybody else that I'm missing, Bobby? Is any turds that are going to...
That's pretty much it, just because there are 3 tight ends that all play.
That's right. They play a lot of
wide
2 tight
receiver
ends.
wise. Yep, that's it, wide receiver wise.
There's too many turds in this game, guys.
There's a lot of turds.
The turds are everywhere. Philip Dorsett is not a turd at 83% exposure, at 83% snap count, and seeing a 20% target share last week. That's really good. Chris Moore, that WR3, fine, very cheap. Don't love the play, but whatevs. But the turd zone is the tight end area. Like, really? This is what I've got to deal with. Brevin Jordan, Jordan Akins, and Orenthal James Howard all...
There's another one that's not even on here. That's my favorite.
You got a favorite that's hidden? Who's that, Hunter? There's a
Troy.
fourth guy. Who?
He's probably the running back that's like the mid-price running back for Houston.
Oh yeah,
Troy Hairston.
Hairston, yeah.
Oh my goodness, the turdliness is too extreme here.
I know.
This is going to be a hard one. Listen, you got to make some stands. You got to take some shots. Let me just look at this sheet again and see if Eagles defense is vulnerable anywhere.
I like him and Atkins are my like 2 min-price dudes, or like close to min-price dudes that I'm switching in and out of those
Eagles
lineups.
just average this year against running backs and tight ends. Just average. So
yeah, they're not that. They're weak. It's not weak, but the spot where you can beat them is at the running back position. I think
you want to run it in their face.
19th or 20th in points per game of running back. So
yeah, right at average
spots.
just average. But I mean, it's really bad.
To be clear, Troy got 24% of the snaps last week, more than both Burkhead and Dare did. So,
all right, so maybe that's the real backup running back at this point, because Rex is super old.
They do something different every week, it seems. Because before it was Dare, they got like a bit of a run, and
yeah, it's pretty gross on the Houston side. It's going to be hard to find players to play on this team. Let's keep it real. This is the Eagles. They're really, really good, and it's just their corners. Like, we're talking about playing Philip Dorsett. You're talking about Darius Slay and James Bradbury as your two top cornerbacks on this team. They're both very good, and as a matter of fact, and DFS Up North, I don't know how you feel about this, but the best matchup is the slot guy.
Well, who's going to play there? Moore? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, is it Moore? Who's the slot guy here?
I can see who got the most snaps.
Bobbywow. Who's the slot guy? Is it Moore? Chris Moore playing out of the slot, or are they going to move Brandon Cooks to the slot? Like, whoever's getting away from Darius Slay, I like that better than if you're not. And same thing with Bradbury. I think James Bradbury is an elite corner. So I want guys who aren't on those guys. What a beating that's coming though for this Texans team, or maybe not. If the Texans are keeping it competitive, it's because they're leaning heavy on Dameon Pierce.
So it'd be more. I mean, Cooks gets in there some, but it's mostly more. 84% of his snaps.
Yeah, I thought it was more. So there you go. So maybe Chris Moore is that cheapie that allows us to get any exposure to this mediocre passing offense.
Right, getting against Monte Maddox.
I
mean, he's got a nice body size like advantage here. He's 4 inches taller, about 15 pounds heavier. Like, that's a nice little. Yeah. Could be a good matchup.
I mean, the best receiver on Houston is Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, well, Pierce is just the best play on Houston, except Houston's about to get a beatdown, and usually you don't really want the running back in his team is getting a beatdown scenario, because it's going to be so unlikely, and he's expensive, and it's really unlikely that he's going to have a lot of goal line opportunities.
But
we'll see.
They've gotten beaten down a couple. I mean, Houston's gotten beaten down every week, and he's still putting up decent numbers.
Yeah, yes, they do. But they've been in those games. This is a much better team than anything Houston has faced. So
one of the weird stats that popped up when I was looking at these really high spread games is that on the dog team, the RB 3 or 4, the super cheap turd RBs hit at a higher percentage than the 1 or 2 RBs, and I think that's just a salary savings thing predominantly, but I mean, you could see a game scenario where like Houston's getting just totally blown out, and they're like, "Fuck it, let's put in our backup, whatever, dude."
I think I've seen more of that, and I guess I don't know, just in general, especially on a site like DraftKings, I've seen more of like the high end, high volume, high dollar players playing a lot more just turd punts and hope, like Toure the other night. Like, a lot of guys had him in there, and it wasn't that. I mean, I guess I don't know exactly their thought process, but I don't think that it was because people thought that Toure was going to be this great play for the Packers. It was a guy that was going to get some snaps that was min-priced that allowed you to get some other guys. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that strategy has been pretty successful, at least this season.
Yeah. Especially when you're right and you hit a guy. I mean,
when you nut out, that's
One thing to consider though, just to tack on there, play devil's advocate. Pierce is a rookie, so I don't know that they're in a hurry to get him out of the game for any reason.
That's true.
A little less true in this situation, it feels like.
Yeah, and they have nothing to play for this week or any week. They're a losing team, so what do they care? All right, so let's talk a little bit of the Eagles offense. And, I think we all listen, Jalen Hurts is the man. We already know it. He runs, he throws. He's spectacular this year. Eagles in the discussion for the best team in the NFC. So, not much to cover there. But Miles Sanders. So Miles Sanders, I liked him a lot better when Boston Scott was out for a couple games. He does lose touches to Boston Scott when Boston Scott is healthy.
Yep.
And then we got to acknowledge that. But it's really Miles Sanders, and he gets spelled a little bit by Boston Scott. And then Kenny Gainwell comes in occasionally as like a pass catching back. He's got so when Scott was out, you were getting more of like a 70% touch rate or snap count for Sanders. But in games with Boston Scott, it comes down a little bit, and that is one of the reasons to proceed a little bit with caution on Miles Sanders / include Boston Scott in your turd mix because in a blowout scenario, I could definitely see them going a little heavier Boston Scott maybe in a fourth quarter.
He shows up in nut lineups a lot, like more like as an individual, Boston Scott.
Yeah. And also, in-game injury is always in play, and we never know. So I would want to have some Boston Scott exposure. Like I said, he was hurt a couple weeks ago, and we loaded up on Miles Sanders for that reason. I was like, well, with no Scott in there, Sanders will at least get the 70%, but it does go down when he does play. So I think that's noteworthy, and it's very consistent. You could see the way the team operates. I mean, it's pretty consistent that Sanders isn't out there for every play. So
they just do not throw to the running backs on this team. Like it's just a non-factor.
Talk about it all the time. Kenny Gainwell will get a target every once in a while when the team's behind. They haven't been behind this year. Yeah, like when the team's they just haven't been behind much this year. But I talk about it all the time. Running quarterbacks are much, 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 much less likely to throw to those checkdowns to the running back because they just run it in those situations. That's what they do. Like the check down to the running back is essentially a replacement for a QB run when a play is broken down. So they just run it. AJ Brown was a beast last week, maintaining a 30+% target share in the offense. Hunter, you already said QB and WR1 should be in your lineup more often than not in these scenarios. So I'm just going to brace that and say, okay, I'll do that. I don't mind. If that hits 90% of the time, we might as well embrace that.
Yeah, QB is like 95%, and AJ Brown will hit like 80% of the time. So
yeah, Jalen Hurts is a 100% exposure guy. And
I like using those numbers just to set my exposure limits make sure that I'm kind of like aligned to that, and like I'm fine having only like 20% no AJ Brown lineups. Like that's fine with me. Like
that sounds about right. And AJ Brown is so expensive and going to be extra chalky because of the monster game he had last week. So keep it in mind. The third wide receiver for the Eagles is Quez Watkins. And, he's got big play upside every single week. Zach Pascal, less big play upside, but still in the game.
Caught a touchdown last week. I think people are going to flock to him a little bit, but Quez is still the guy that I think you play.
Yeah.
He's the one that's out there the most. Like they're just not using him because they don't need to so far.
I mean, he's just gonna try to take the top off the defense every time and like create space for AJ Brown and create space for Devonta Smith. And if Hurts can hit him on a deep pass, like he's gonna pay off pretty quickly.
When a team is styling like what the Eagles are probably going to be doing tomorrow or in this game, they'll be styling. Meaning what? They're having fun out there. They're playing catch. It's an easy win. And in those situations, you do see those big bombs to like a Quez or whatever. And it's just like them having fun out there. So make sure I'm definitely going to make sure to get exposure to all of this. But obviously the prime names, I got to think a lot about the Miles Sanders and if I like it or not. But man, this defense is so bad against the run. It makes it difficult not to load up on running backs, right? Closing it out for the Eagles, we've got Dallas Goedert at tight end, 80% snap count, 20% target share. He's great. And of course, Jack Stoll is the backup tight end. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but can always catch a miracle touchdown at some point during this game. All right.
So for Goddard, just a note there, he's like one of the individuals with the highest percentage occurrence as like a flex play for Philly. Like as any of the individuals, if you want to look at AJ Brown, Devonta, whatever, like he shows up the most, like around 30% of the time.
I think it could be Boston Scott night.
Could be.
And the defense is similar. Like him and the defense, I know they're priced the same basically, but like they both show up about the same amount of times.
Bobbywow, you're not feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling Bob. I'm feeling Boston Scott.
Look, I'm the one in a turd hat, so I'm a nuisance at this point.
I
like the Boston Scott call. He shows up a lot, so I'm definitely going to have.
I also just think like in garbage time in the fourth quarter, they're like, all right, we're killing it.
Especially Miles Sanders, and I won't limit it. Like not play him.
No, they play together. I'm not that when you're a team giving up 11 points above average, that is so much more than it should be. When you're giving up that many points.
Yeah.
Is that iced coffee?
Yeah.
It's cold. Okay.
But like, look at last week, for example, right? Derrick Henry. What threat was Ryan Tannehill to break the mold there? Like we're talking about an offense with Jalen Hurts, who's basically RB1 for this team. So
and by the way, those rushing yard
worried.
totals, those 10 points above, also go to Jalen Hurts.
Yes,
that counts in the statistic. That's why,
And he rushes something like 10 to 12 times on average a game, so that's like a lot.
Yeah, but the point of it is, with that being said, they can still give up 10 points above average to the running back and it'd be Jalen Hurts. It doesn't mean that Sanders is all of a sudden going to have this great game. So, All right, let's get into the breakdown here. This is a Bobbywow breakdown. So I'm going to throw it over to you here. Bobbywow, take us through the captain position this week. You gave 4.5 stars to Jalen Hurts. I mean, that seems like, the obvious. Do we got to get 35% Jalen Hurts at the captain? Are we just doing that?
Absolutely. I think you can. And you've got a little bit of an outdated version of this sheet here, but that's okay. Not a whole lot's changed. So Jalen Hurts, we've talked about it already, right? His salary, we could say underpriced, but the truth of the matter is he's too close in pricing to AJ Brown and Miles Sanders. So it's hard for me to not be 30, 40%. I mean, maybe even higher if you're a little more risk averse. But really, AJ Brown is so close. We're talking about him having to outscore Jalen Hurts to be the captain. So that's kind of the reasoning there. You get below Brown, and Brown's up there too. The Eagles have played 7 games this season. Brown has outscored Hurts in 2 of them. So again, definitely a non-zero chance. Just worth keeping in mind. That's why he's the second highest there.
I love the balls of going 1.5 star on Miles Sanders. So no, that's fucking balls. And that's why that's why every time I make a DFS play, I ask myself, what would Bobbywow do? Like I literally have that playing in my brain. What would Bobbywow do? So talk to me, Bobbywow. 1.5 stars on Sanders.
Several reasons. The sheer thought of playing Sanders in a Hurts lineup is debilitating for me. I hate it. They're both incredibly expensive. They don't ever hit their ceiling together. And there's a 3-headed running back situation in Philly. I mean, they don't all split 3 ways, but Miles Sanders gets a 50% snap share. The other guys are on the field for 50% of the time. So I don't love that. The one note I have in here about Miles Sanders, literally the only reason I didn't pull him off captain completely is because when Miles Sanders pops off, Jalen Hurts does not. And so you go back to week 4. Miles Sanders scored 32 points that week. Okay. He smashed. I think Jalen Hurts scored like 12 or something crazy
18,
like that.
18. He still does okay, but
18 for Hurts I don't think it gets you there.
Is that the nuts?
Both.
Is that the nuts on
he probably was still in the nuts lineup, but it, depends on what turds were there. I have to go back and look, but I
guess moral of my story is if you are thinking about not playing Hurts, I would have Miles Sanders in all of those lineups.
Every one of them.
That's really what I'm getting.
Well, let me ask you then the flip side question, Bobbywow. Do I need to avoid it as a rule? Do I need to rule out Hurts and Sanders together in the same lineup?
I wouldn't.
I would, but these guys wouldn't. And it's fair. It's fair.
No, this is real. Listen, some people don't ever like to make a rule. Hey, it might happen. But is there, on a slate like this with, do we rule it out? Do we rule it out? Do I make sure I have one or the other and never both?
So if we go back to week 4, when Miles Sanders smashed, Jalen Hurts was still at 16.96 points, still in the nuts lineup.
He still made it.
It gets you here with the salaries the way they are. I don't know.
I don't know if it does either.
I might do. So here's what I think.
A stretch to say it gets you
the best way to approach this with the Dom station is. If I've got Sanders at my captain, I'm going to do a separate run for the Miles Sanders captain. I'm going to elevate Eagles defense in those runs, and I'm going to reduce the occurrence of Jalen Hurts in the flex, probably down significantly below 50%. So I'm going to make sure that a decent portion of my Sanders captain lineups, and that's the only real way to do it We don't have like individual controls for that. We
I
have
like that approach though.
Yeah, so I just want to do it as a separate run because I'm just trying to think what's the best physical way. Like if you don't want to outrule it, if you don't want to rule it out, because it could be one of those complete blowout games where, you know, a 16 from Hurts is enough and he's in the nuts too, even though he's a low scorer. That requires a certain game script to happen. I think you put your, you run your Sanders captain lineups as its own run and you control for the Hurts exposure.
Yep.
So that's how we could bring that to life. All right, let's continue on through the captain position, Bobbywow. And you got a little Dameon Pierce here. I
like it. I like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Can he score enough to be the nuts play?
On DraftKings?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Talk me into it, Bobbywow.
I mean, I love to hear Josh too, but he's relatively cheap. He gets all the touches. And if the Texans end up near the end zone, which they're going to have to at some point, he's getting the touchdowns. So, you know, he's a very contrarian play, in my opinion. The ownership's I don't think it's going to be that high.
I don't think it'll be 12.
Come tomorrow night. But we've already said it. He's the best play on the Texans, and he offers you a bunch of savings. So I'm willing to take some shots there.
Yeah, and the props aren't bad. 63 and 15 for passing, you know, over 2.5 catches is minus 160. Like, he's one of the highest touchdown scorers on the slate. Like, even I like Dameon Pierce here.
I agree. I like him. I'm not sure how much I'm going to put him in my captain, but I certainly like him a lot.
I'm out on Pierce as a captain. I'm not doing it. You gotta, you know, everybody gotta narrow the field on their own a little bit.
I think if I'm playing like a single entry, I don't think that's a great play, but like maker, like absolutely.
I'm just saying, like, I'm going to narrow it down. I don't think I'm going to be on it. I think that I kind of believe in this Hunter approach of like the massive favored team is going to produce the highest scorers. And I'm just going to stick with that for this one, because with so many turds on this slate, I think if you get a higher percentage exposure to just 3 captains, for example, it gives you a better chance, if you're making 150, of cycling through and getting that weird lineup with Jordan Akins that it took to win the fucking tournament, or the Simi Farquhar, or some other weird ass player that, you know, the 4th tight end from the Texans that might be needed to get there. So I don't know. I'm going to skip that one. For me, I might skip Miles Sanders as a captain too.
There's no doubt in my mind that Pierce outscores Miles Sanders on the slate.
There you go. So, I mean, that should be enough. I kind of don't like either. Brandon Cooks, sure, why not? Although I will say.
So you're saying, Bobby, you're not going to play any Sanders as captain then?
I'll have 0 Sanders as captain.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too.
So here's the deal that we forget about Pierce too, is that like Hunter said a minute ago, Pierce is the best wide receiver on his team. Like, he's getting 5 or 6 catches every single game. Like,
it's going to be higher in this game. I
guarantee that gets him a massive upside on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's the pass catching role that gives him his best option. There's no doubt, especially in a game like this. You're not really going to, like I said, you're not smashing it down the throat of the Eagles when your team is down, and it just makes no sense. So let's continue on here. Brandon Cooks has not had the best year. There's some questionable tag thing going on with him. We don't know about the health. Davis Mills looked pretty good throwing to Cooks last season. I don't know. It feels like almost regression. I'm not sure what's gone on there. Cooks gives you yeoman-like performances most weeks. He's getting like 11 targets and 6 receptions and like 14 to 17 fantasy points. It hasn't been enough to like be a DFS factor, but you know, he's been okay if you've had him, I think, for the most part. 3-star play. Yeah, I'm fine with it, but I don't love it.
I don't love it either. No, he's cheap. Yeah. I mean, you would have told me at the beginning of the season Brandon Cooks would have been 7,200 on a DraftKings Showdown. Would have been like, oh man, that's gotta be a juicy spot, right? But no, you're right, Geek. It's been a struggle to say the least.
He's also going to see Darius Slay one-on-one. Like, that is the worst possible matchup. It's just a bad matchup for Brandon Cooks. I'm sorry, guys. Look at the numbers.
I don't want to do it.
Look again. Like, just look.
No, it's not a great matchup. Davis Mills isn't great. Like,
this is a team that allows 5 points below. The only team that's like better than them, is like Denver, Giants a little bit. Like these guys are one of the best teams in the National Football League.
Does that mean he's going to get negative points this week?
In a shocking twist, and Seattle. What the fuck are they doing here?
We called at the beginning of the season, but
yeah, I don't know what's going on there. But well, Bobbywow. So total side note, man, I am. You were so early. I brushed it off as homerisms. But you were so early with Fields,
which you have every right to do, given my history.
Well, you have a history of being a homer for your sports clubs, but I brushed it off. And my goodness, talk about being early on the trend of Fields not sucking. And
I like this dart play. I've been a Fields believer. Dart play. I like the dart play.
Oh, you want to talk about Goddard? Okay, God Dart.
I shotted you on the notes, Geek.
All right,
you're not gonna like it.
All right, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it out.
Very end.
There it is. All right, price on Goddard is appealing, quietly putting up some really solid numbers. Most consistent pass catcher for the Eagles. I don't know if I agree, but he fits the super solid but not sexy category in the best way possible. 6+ targets, 5 receptions, 11 to 15 fantasy points. Excellent cash option, which I agree. I'll be able to in tournaments as well. And don't tell Geek, but he could even be worth a dart throw or 2 as your MME captain. And that's where it's like, you shouldn't have told me, because I don't want him as my captain. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it, a dart throw or 2, in fairness. I think you're on the right track with him. Listen, every once in a while, a tight end sneaks up.
I would say on a normal week, he's a bad choice for a captain because there's no way that he outscores Hurts on a normal week. But in a game scenario where they might run Sanders more than usual, if Sanders doesn't get there, there's a good chance that it's like a guy like Goddard catching those touchdowns or something like that.
But look at DraftKings too. He's half the price of Hurts, so he doesn't have to outscore him, right? He's got to double his score if he can get close to Hurts. It gets interesting there. So he is just way too cheap on DraftKings, in my opinion, given his consistency.
The lineup is going to look a lot better if you can start with the Dallas Goddard. We'll build the lineup here in a minute, but I'm okay with it. I also want to remind everybody that millions have been won with like Hayden Hurst types when they go off for that one game. So I think we've seen it with CJ Uzuma last year, and the exact style of tight end like this, like one of these guys that really wasn't doing much. Orenthal James Howard has won you a tournament more than once as your nuts captain in the tight end position. So like, yeah, I'm cool with the dart throw on this one, Bobbywow, because that's won tournaments. And I'm not talking about Gronk. I'm talking about like mediocre, worse than Goddard type tight ends have gotten there. Tyler Conklin this past week won the million. Jeez. I mean, like tight ends make. I just had Statsational on the game plan, which we'll be posting later, and it's an awesome one. And I was asking him a lot of questions. He keeps taking tournaments down. I was like, how'd you get on? He actually, do you know that Statsational won the early showdown last week? Not the early. He won the
early slate.
The early slate with a score higher than what won the million.
Yep.
He's a beast.
Oh my God.
He's a beast.
He put up a Millie Maker winning score on the early only slate. It was
only won 100K.
Yeah, he won 100K, and then somebody asked him like, "Would you, if you could change it to the Millie Maker right now, would you?" And he said, "Actually, yes, I would, because it felt like the score couldn't be beat." That's the morning. But yeah, he did not win the Millie Maker, which he had maxed, but that one he did win. Anyway,
and just to go back quickly, super broad level view. Hunter was talking about Goddard. Almost always shows up somehow in the nuts. I think in cash, you plug him in and you move on.
He's cheap enough that
I like him on both sides.
He's down in the kicker zone, and he's much cheaper than the defense. So yeah, he's cheaper than much cheaper. So just kind of going through the turd zone here. I mentioned Dallas Goddard, Davis Mills, 9K. I don't like it. And then Eagles defense 7th. Bobbywow, what are we doing?
I hate it. But look,
up north. I mean, I need some opinions. You hate.
Who are we?
Go ahead.
Andy Dalton, nuts captain 2 weeks ago.
I know.
Jacoby Brissett, almost nuts captain on Monday.
I know.
Big time nuts flex. So I despise it. Davis Mills has thrown for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game a couple times last season. So, but yes, I hate it. And now I know you're talking about the defense, right? Is that where we're going next?
Just a minute. Eagles 5 points below expectation. So yeah, and now let's get to the defense.
Yeah, but
here.
like, what was Brissett last week? He was probably the same.
Yeah, terrible.
You know what I mean? Like, these in a 1-game sample, I think it's viable.
You can play it for 9K. I mean, good luck. But
we'll do it to FanDuel too. It's crazy. Okay,
Eagles
sorry,
7K though. This is the one that bothers me the most. So they've priced up the defense to a point. The last time I remember a 7K defense, it happens every once in a while. They do it on games like this. There was one Jets Patriots game a couple years ago, maybe last year, where they jacked it up to 7K, and then Pat's defense put up a 21.
Yeah, and I was screaming at the rooftops to not play Pat's defense.
Yeah, and they got a 21. So that's why I wanted to go to up north. You especially hate the priced up defense. What are you doing here?
They're good, and Davis Mills is bad. Like, I don't know. I think, like we were talking about pregame, like, I think I'm just going to play him on FanDuel and fade him on DraftKings because they're more palatable on FanDuel.
Let me ask you this, Josh. Does the Eagles defense get there without a shutout or a touchdown, a defensive touchdown? None of those two things happen. Do they still get there?
I mean, potentially, like we saw it with the Browns, right? Like, you get a bunch of sacks, you get a pick or two. Like, even if you give up between 7 and 13 points. That gets you to 6. Like,
I mean, you could get a 20. You could get a 26 out of Eagles defense in this game, no problem. They are on the road, but I think Eagles is a risky play. I would not use them in cash. So
no.
Jeez, Louise.
Yeah. We're staying out. They priced it correctly in the sense that if they were 4K or 30,
you could play them in
4,200, then you would load up on Eagles defense in like almost every lineup. Now they made it a decision.
I like that they made it a decision. I guess I do like that.
That's right? A positive. Like, so now you could play the defense like you normally would, like 18% or 20, that range.
Yeah, because like, do you think they get there with 15 points, Bobby?
Maybe.
I don't. It feels to me like they would have to have a defensive touchdown at that point, but they do lead the league in turnovers. So,
Kenny Gainwell, appropriate dart, and this is not the game environment for him to excel in my opinion. Chris Moore is. I like him probably maybe a little more than even a Philip Dorsett because at least he'll avoid elite coverage. Whereas a Dorsett is going to see James Bradbury. I think a Dorsett in his role, deep pass, he could catch a bomb. He could be in the nuts, but that's what it's probably going to take. He'll probably have to catch a bomb. It's going to have to be he's going to have to pull a Traquan Smith, 2 receptions.
Is Moore the slot guy? Is that who?
Yeah, Chris Moore is going to be out of the slot, and he'll get the best coverage matchup just because he'll avoid Slay and Bradbury there. I'm trying to find any other turds of interest down here. You've got an all play on Jake, the Snake Elliott. I'm fine with that. Of course, we love the kicker for the favored team. They're just gonna, he score a lot of touchdowns. They score a lot of points. He'll be involved.
A little interesting to note here. Maybe it was this way last week too, but there's a $1,000 difference between Elliott and Fairbairn.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a pretty big spread.
But rightfully, the favored. When assuming this game goes as planned and Houston's down by 2 touchdowns, how many field goals are you kicking? You have to start going for it because you're down. So like
I'm just saying it's the difference between like a Miles Sanders and AJ Brown or an AJ Brown and a Jalen Hurts. So it's worth mentioning.
I'm going to point out my favorite salary savers on the slate. And guys who are watching, I want to hear from you, your favorite salary. This is the turd spot. Who is your favorite turd? I'm going to give you my favorite salary savers on the slate. And we'll go around the room here. And guys, each of you give me one, even though I'm going to give 2 and I'm going to take the 2 best ones because I go first. Right. That's how we do it. Because I want the credit when it's right. Keeping it real. I love credit when I'm right. I do. I'm not going to lie. Quez Watkins, 1,400. That is just too good of a price for the WR3. Again, what I say before, Jalen Hurts styling. He's just having fun in this one, right? He's like, hey, let's have some fun, guys. Let's play a little street ball. Quez Watkins running deep. Boom. Nails it, right? So you don't Quez is my cheap guy. 1,400. I love the price. That's my guy. And the other one, James is all over it. And good call. Boston Scott for the narrative of all the suckers played Miles Sanders, thinking that he's going to smash in this amazing matchup. It's now the fourth quarter, and the team's like, why are we playing our starter? We're up 31-7. Let's get the Boston Scott out there and give him some work. And he breaks one in the fourth quarter and produces the nuts lineup at 1,800. Boom. You guys are speechless. DFS up north. Who's your favorite turd?
I mean, Kez Watkins, but I would take.
It's okay to repeat one of mine. That's fine.
Know. I like.
That's fine. Don't.
I would say I like Brevin Jordan probably the best.
Meh. Okay. Yeah, Brevin Jordan will be out there. Hunter, who you got? Meh. But yeah,
my below 1K guys that I like, because I think you need somebody that price if you're going to play any of the top guys in the captain spot, is probably I'm going to go half and half between Atkins and my boy who's not on here, the secret turd.
Has he caught a pass all season? I just need to know.
2 last week.
Okay. So he's like 2 total this season?
Yeah.
But that was the first game he's played too. So
I got him.
I like it.
He's caught a pass on the 9-11 against Indianapolis week 1, and then he caught 2 last week for 7 yards.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to throw him on for Hunter here.
What's the name of the player?
Hairston.
You know,
he's a converted defensive lineman, defensive end, defensive. I don't know. He's converted from defense.
He got 24%.
Yeah, linebacker and defensive end. He comes in and plays fullback, and then they let him. He lead blocks for Pierce.
He's a poor man's Kyle Juszczyk.
He's like a Juszczyk or a CJ Ham.
He's gonna get you a 0 if you play him.
Probably getting a 0.
It's a good call. No, Hunter, that's a good call. I'm throwing him on.
I just want to point out, secret turd. You got me thinking of like a little graphic that we can put up on screen with a turd, and it's like, shh.
That is good.
And if somebody knows how to make a little video of a turd going,
on that.
Shh, secret turd, and you
know,
can make
if he hits,
play it on the show.
Nuts, we're going to be talking about this next week.
Yeah, no, but I want to have like a secret turd segment where I could just play a little video. Shh, secret turd. But I need like a cartoon turd, like Bobbywow's hat saying it. So if anybody knows how to create things that are visual, I will play that on the show. Send it to me.
Yeah, but I mean, I like Watkins. I mean, the guys that are in that 2K range, Watkins makes sense just as the WR3. He's going to get the most time out there on the field, and
he's on the field the whole game. What about you, Bobbywow?
I think there will be a Houston tight end in the nuts lineup. So take your pick. OJ Howard's the lowest owned, so I think I'm going Renthal James, as you would say.
Got to go with a Renthal James. I really hope that a freaking Houston tight end isn't in the nuts, but that might be how we have to play this card, and it's unpleasant. It doesn't make you feel it's not going to be in this. So let's build a lineup, guys. And I think what we should actually do is build the most obvious captain version.
Love it.
You put Jalen Hurts in there. Enough getting cute. How you build a lineup, right?
Goddard, Quez.
Goddard. Yeah, I was going to go Quez. So there we go. Quez as our favorite turd. Alice as our guy who randomly always shows up in winning lineups.
Our foundation.
Yeah, in showdowns. Now, we're going to have to pick a player from Houston at some point.
Yeah, but
Pierce is very expensive.
He's going to get 40,000 touches.
Here's the thing with Pierce.
He's not that expensive, is he?
If you play Pierce, and he's not, you cannot play A.J. Brown. You have to give up on Brown and Sanders and all those guys. That is a decision point, right? I would suggest that because Bobbywow put 4 stars on Jake Elliott, that is the guy that we should put.
Okay.
And then what happens if I put Pearson? Hold on.
I just don't love Elliott as much with a million Eagles in the lineup too. That's all.
Also, look how I can't reach.
Okay, but
take Elliott out and put Fairbairn in.
2 players from
yes.
Or so Dorsett. Either one is fine.
You play Dorsett too.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's a good line.
The running back and the kicker in there. But I'll mention that in these high-scoring affairs, the high spread affairs, the kickers from both teams, they hit the nuts about equally. You'd think it'd be more on the favored team, but it's not actually.
Eagles are number 1 at,
and they're both relatively low comparatively to other positions. Like only about 5 or 6 times out of like 30 did the kickers actually show up in there, which was weird.
I'm not down with the kicker, guys. I'm not down with the kicker.
With the kicker in the flex?
I don't love it. I'm always down with a kicker in the flex.
Yeah,
I just want to point out, like, because the Eagles have been blowing everybody out, they're holding kickers to the least fantasy points per game of any team in the league. So I don't want the number 1 team.
I love that lineup
against kickers. Yeah, I mean, if Bobbywow loves it,
I love it.
I don't love the door. This is the spot that's going to hurt us right here. And I'm just trying to think if there's some other version of Goddard and Dorsett, but I'm going to put it in because you love it. I'm keeping it, and let's roll with it. I do think, though, I don't feel that great about Dorsett or Goddard. I think we could find another. You know what? I got to do it again. Hold on.
To blow my turd head off here.
Put us either like a super cheap tight end from Houston or a super cheap running back from. Wait, what happened?
You hate to see it.
Kevin hit the
karma right there. That's funny. So, okay, while he's getting back in here, before we go to FanDuel, I want to address one thing and hear your guys' thoughts.
Okay.
How is this game competitive? Like, in what scenario for the Texans does this become a competitive game? Because it's possible.
You guys want to hear something fun, by the way, of what just happened? As a fun side note. So, of course, I hit backspace on the wrong camera and left this room. And then when I came back, I jumped into Josiah's NBA live room. And I'm like in there with Josiah, like, hey, what's up, man?
Oh, my God.
It's like, what are you doing here? I just hopped in the Josiah room. Oh, that was awesome.
Bobby was just asking a question.
I was asking before we get to FanDuel, how does this game play out as competitive? What has to happen? Because the one thing that's giving me a little bit of pause maybe is that both these offenses play really, really slow.
They do.
So what has to happen for it to be competitive?
It has to be a heavy dose of the run and defense from Houston. So Dameon Pierce, in a scenario where this game is close, Dameon Pierce is having his best day. So if you want to really understand, like, how does this game go differently than we're expecting? In that scenario, it is Dameon Pierce specifically, on my mind, in my opinion, who is going to be the guy that, like, is shocking. And the way that you beat, look what last week we almost saw, I believe it was Aaron Rodgers and crew, and I'm pretty sure they were either against the Eagles or the Bills, where what started to happen in a game that they were getting blown out, all of a sudden they start going heavy Aaron Jones and like, it's the running game that is the great equalizer. And that is what really would need to be going right. So it still leaves you with Pierce. But again, if they're doing that, Hurts is answering. So it's this last 2 spots and the last lineup that we built that made me feel a little uncomfortable. Didn't love it. So I'm trying to think if there's a second approach to instead of going with, I just don't like Dorsett that much.
I know you love Quez, but take him out. Put in the super punt turd Houston tight end or running back of your choice. Oof. This is not cash. This isn't cash. This is tournament stuff. Here.
Man, I hate picking between these guys. I can't do it. I'd rather go with Boston Scott, as a matter of fact. That will be my turd. So if I need to switch off, I cannot. I don't know how to choose. See, the problem for me, Hunter, and this is a $33 contest, so it's not that cheap, and I'm actually going to put it in. But like, I'm using this lineup. So here's the thing. If I cannot differentiate between the 3 tight ends, which one's better, that is the ultimate MME GPP only thing. I have no idea between Akins and those guys. I don't know who's better. So I don't want to guess a 1 in 3 guess.
Yeah, don't
in
put
a
it
real
in this.
lineup that costs money.
Yeah, don't put it in this tournament.
I don't like that scene one bit. But if I put in Scott, that really doesn't change the dynamic too much. But I'm going to put in Jake the Snake Elliott here, and I'm left with. Here we go. Okay, I'll do this one. So in this version, instead of Goddard, can I get to Goddard? No, I can't get to Goddard, and I don't like Dorsett. I'm going to go Chris Moore and Jake Elliott.
Ugh.
You like Chris Moore and Jake Elliott more than Goddard and Quez?
No, not Goddard and Quez. Goddard and Dorsett. It's Dorsett that was bothering me, not Goddard. Actually, I could probably do the same version.
Even worse.
Yeah, I think this lineup's bad.
Well, All right, probably right. I'm definitely not doing a turd bet.
I hate wearing the turd hat and trying to tell Geek he's wrong because it just doesn't work.
I'm always in the turd hat. I'm almost always wrong. By the way,
look, if you're going to play
up north,
play Hurts in the captain, you're going to not love your lineup. It's going to look ugly.
That's the thing, right? Like,
wait, Josh, you didn't notice I wore my Blankenships.
Oh, Rodrigo's. Yeah, you look good.
I wore my Blankenships.
I can wear
mine. I was waiting for the comment. All right, let's talk a little bit of FanDuel.
FanDuel quick.
So here's the thing.
Seems like simpler, except somehow Bobbywow managed to get more MVPs than I ever would have imagined could be possible. Why are there so many MVPs? All right, take me through it, Bobbywow. The core obvious play, Jalen Hurts. We don't need to talk about that.
You could go 100% Hurts if you want.
Yes, it's probably going to be Hurts. It's very rare that a pass catcher, unless it's last week and you catch like 5 touchdowns, all to AJ Brown, it's wildly unusual that a pass catcher will surpass their quarterback, especially a running quarterback. I don't even think it's even barely possible. Did you know what? Did he? Let's see what the scores were last week. Hang on.
How is he only 28%?
No,
like
Brown outscored Hurts last week, but unlike DraftKings, he did not outscore in week 1. So it's only happened once.
He got him. Okay, so he got him last week, but it took 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
And 156 yards, basically, and for Jalen Hurts to have so little need to do anything that he didn't run the football
at all.
So here we go. So that's the reason for Brown. Sanders is without Hurts. If you're not going to play Hurts MVP on plans, consider Sanders. Dameon Pierce, we already talked about it. Davis Mills is projected to be 2% owned as MVP. He is a quarterback in the National Football League. Okay. I hate it. It's 4%. Nasty. You're going to lose money.
Wait, does he remind you of Kyle Orton because he has a weirdly long neck?
Because he sucks.
It's not his playing style.
No, he's like a crazy long neck.
He sucks. That's Mike Glennon. They're the same. They're all the same person.
There you go.
So, but here's the deal, guys. 10% would be like considered crazy, and that's not a lot. Davis Mills, the Texans, anything could happen. The Texans could go down 35-0 in the first half. He could come out in the second half and throw 3 garbage time touchdowns, end up as the nuts. I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying go crazy. What I am saying is 3% MVP ownership is way too low for any quarterback.
You have been very consistent with talking about that. And by the way, it's worked a number of times.
Monday night.
Yeah, it's just Monday night, the Brissett play. So, like, I would never think to play those guys. Brissett all of a sudden running in a touchdown. You know, like Dorsett.
MME.
Davis Mills stretching the neck out for the touchdown.
Yes, MME only for that, but you got to at least consider it.
Bobby, to answer your question on like what does Houston need to do in order to be competitive in this game and you know, like be close to the score, is that I think that they need to pass the ball. Like, I mean, they can't just run it. Like, I don't think that gets them enough. And Mills needs to do more with it, and he's got to hit his guys a few times deep and actually break coverage on some of them. So
last week he looked terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but like I think that's what would need to happen for them to be in the game.
Basically, OJ Howard has to lead the pass catchers to 3 touchdowns.
Something bizarre. Something bizarre has to happen.
Something crazy. All right. And I like that Bobbywow leaves Miles Sanders in here with the dart as a warning that he's not using Miles Sanders. And I have to put him here. Like sometimes you put a warning up there, like, I don't like this guy.
Well, I said it below, I think. I said this Philly backfield is almost certain to leave us cussing out our TV screens because it never goes how you want it to go.
It really doesn't. Unless Boston Scott is out for the game, which he's not.
And then it still doesn't go how we want.
Then it doesn't.
Darius Slay and Bradbury run into each other and take both of them out of the game, and Miles goes off for
something weird would have to happen. So let's.
This slate is a breeze in cash. This is one of the better cash slates, in my opinion, that we've had in a long time on Showdown. But
give me the cash line.
We
do the cash.
Pierce.
Okay.
Kicker. Where's
Goddard?
Where's Goddard? Yeah, where's God?
He's expensive.
He's 11 or 10.
Oh, and then we put in Quez or AK or one of these turds, basically.
Quez.
Yeah, you get Quez in there.
I think it's like, yeah.
Where's Boston Scott? Oh,
probably one of the tight ends for Houston might be a better. Like,
yeah, you go Fairbairn, Boston Scott too. There's a couple options.
Chris Moore is only 6,500 too.
Yes, that too.
Oh, Chris.
Ooh, my boy Chris Moore. So, yeah, pretty simple approach. It seems like. I mean, listen, I can make an argument to use AJ Brown instead of Dameon Pierce. It's probably not the smartest argument. This is more of a tournament approach.
Not on FanDuel, I don't think.
All Eagles.
You can't play that game.
No, from here you got to then switch over to
Chris Moore.
Yeah, something like that. So,
but no, you're right.
Boston Scott.
No, Boston's on the Eagles.
Cash.
He's not a cash play. Yeah, I don't think you play any of these guys in cash. Like Akins or like I said, there's too many of them.
There's too many getting enough snaps.
Yeah, we have to go with the other one. So
one final question before we close for you guys. If you have to bet the spread, what are you betting?
Oh, Texans cover.
I'm betting the under.
Because that changes things. Okay, you have to bet the spread, Geek.
No, I got to bet the spread.
14 points, right?
No, I would still take the Eagles to cover the Giants spread.
Okay.
It's probably actually, you know what? I need the Sharp app. I can't make decisions without
by the way,
knowing.
Sharp app.
Yeah, I mean, check out the Sharp app. Like, I don't understand how people bet without this knowledge, but
it's true.
You know, people
Have we talked NHA yet?
No. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but that's right. We got our sponsor, No House Advantage. Guys, we got to mention our boys at No House Advantage. This game is going strong. They actually have a Thursday night football contest, and I won the last one. I threw some numbers on the screen. Yeah, and I didn't win it fully, but I cashed in it, and that was pretty fun. So here's how this game works over at No House Advantage. It's a prop game. They've got a Thursday night football showdown, $20K in prizes. And basically, it's very similar to other prop games, except in a tournament format. And each prop that you choose gets assigned a points total. I remember when these guys came up with this game a bunch of years ago, before all the prop games kind of started jumping. And I thought it was a cool game. It was like a really fun game to play. And basically, you pick your favorite prop and you put that in the highest, in the highest points total, and you want to score as many points as possible. So
what's the Goddard prop? All
right, let's take a look at the Goddard prop here. 52 receiving, 4.5 receptions.
I like the 4.5.
You like an over on 4.5.
Right? Anything?
No, I don't know what my favorite. I would have had to prep this
Vegas
before the show. How about an under on Quez, since we've been like playing him in every single. If you're sometimes you want to.
It's a good strategy though. The hedge, I like it.
Yeah, you want to hedge against all that Quez exposure by this. So this is a really cool game, guys. Check it out at No House Advantage. Support the sponsor, of course, and promo code ARMY. They will match your deposit, and it lets them know that you came from the show, and then maybe they'll keep sponsoring it, and we'll keep the Showdown breakdown on the public YouTube channel for you guys to enjoy. So No House Advantage, promo code ARMY. What's that?
Hurts under passing yards.
Yeah, I thought that passing yards number was pretty high.
Way too high. It's like 20 yards high.
Yeah, I thought that was really high. So one of the nice things we have in DFS Army, by the way, is we have projection models for each prop, so you can see what we project the passing yards for. I don't want to pull it up right now, but I do definitely like to compare it with that, and I like to compare these odds against the sportsbook odds for yardage. And basically, you just look for, if you have a sportsbook open or you have the DFS Army tools open, you look for discrepancies between what they're asking and what the sports books are on. So check out No House Advantage. Good reminder, DFS Up North, you're all over it. I appreciate it.
Also, I was thinking about it because I was just looking at the power rankings, which have the spread at 13.
Boom.
There it is.
I'll go opposite Josh in that I'll say that that Philly covers. Not only will Philly cover, but Texans will not score over 10 points.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I don't see the Texans having a very good game here at all offensively. So I want to build my lineups for like the Texans and what you just said, Hunter, probably not scoring more than 10 or 13 points total.
I think this plays out like the Bills and Packers. Like the Bills smash right away, and then all of a sudden that third and fourth quarter, like, oh, they got a touchdown, and then they got a turnover, and then you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden this game ends up closer than what it actually was.
It took a miracle, but that could happen here again. It took like Josh Allen throwing interceptions twice.
Two bad interceptions.
Yeah, in the red zone. And just that's what happens when you're styling out there.
Can't you hear the title, The Miracle on Mills? Can't you? It's like the 30 for 30 comeback.
The miracle.
The only miracle was if you sold Mills in your dynasty league before the season started for a first round future pick, then you'd be sitting really pretty right now. All right, guys, remember to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you like these Showdown breakdowns and if you like our full slate breakdowns. And if you love NBA or DFS or just having a good time and the laughs and Bobby Wow's wearing a turd hat, if you like that, smash that like button. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel, notification bell, DFS Army, sign up as a VIP if you want these tools. Why don't you? I don't know. If you do, promo code Geek gets you 10% off for Wow, for North, for Hunter, for Geek. We'll see you guys next time on another Showdown Breakdown. Take care, everybody.